And we are live.
Hello, everyone. Hello, my friends and members of our membership group, and also then the public as well on YouTube. We have a big show today because we're going to have Jon Stewart with us talking about a case from the 90s involving a possible ET that was in captivity. But before that, we want to go through some of the information that was on the hearing that occurred on Tuesday in Washington. So there have been a lot of questions about it, and I want to just review that. And Jon, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of your listeners and viewers. I appreciate the opportunity of coming on and talking about my journey. Thank you.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll get into the facts of that. But let's do a little quick recap. I was at the reception for the members of Congress and some folks the night before, and I knew there'd be some kind of videotape. Mr. Burleson, Congressman Burleson, informed me that he had some footage, and we'll put that up as I'm speaking about it in the finished interview. But basically what it shows is a drone chasing a spherical object that, and then another drone fires a Hellfire missile, which apparently, as it approaches the object, breaks up, and some of the debris go along with the sphere. And this came from a source. I had known of this event some time ago, about a month or two ago. It happened off the coast of Yemen in October of last year, 2024. So unfortunately, the commentary on it is completely off the mark. One of the problems with these hearings is that there aren't any subject experts at them. And I will be blunt about this. So Ms. Luna, who's the chair of that task force, Congressman Luna, asked everyone if this was something that could be anything we have. And of course, all of them said no. But the people on the panel were a UFO journalist who has no scientific credentials or information on the subject. And the others were ones who had been present at incidents that were passing, but weren't read into covert programs, and most certainly had no knowledge of the reverse engineered tech or even the very advanced exotic technologies which Lockheed Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and EG&G and other companies have. Now, with the data that's in that video, I can't tell if that's a non-human object or man-made, but the way it behaved and the fact that it was something that didn't just vanish and disappear as these missiles closed in on it would indicate that it was man-made. So an extraterrestrial and interstellar technology literally will look like it dematerializes right in front of you because they shift into quote unquote another dimension, but they just go beyond the speed of matter and light and subatomic particles. And so it would just not be there. So I would say that the evidence would point to this being a man-made object. Now, a man-made object from where? We do know that, for example, the anti-gravity triangles, which have been made by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon over the years that are electrogravitic or a so-called gravity control effect, those also have been spotted in Russia and also in Iran and in China. And there's a good reason to believe that the sort of undeclared arms race involving reverse engineering advanced ET technologies is most certainly not limited to the United States. Now, this brings up a question of whether or not it matters what country it's from, because as I understand the organization engaged in this subject, it's a transnational corrupt organization. It's a organized crime syndicate that's global. And it has operations in every country in the world, subterranean, that goes off the radar of the leadership of these other countries. And I know that's true in the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, the other advanced Western countries of France and whatnot. Now, the question is that the situation in Iran or Russia or China? I don't know. I will say I don't know if that's the same dynamic. It very well could be. And that's something that has yet to be, in my mind, determined. But I can say with authority, with firsthand knowledge and authority, that the technologies that sphere represented very well could be of human manufacture, but from what origin and what terrain, let's say what geopolitical area, I don't know. Now, the geopolitical area, say the boundaries of Iran, Russia, China, US, are pretty much irrelevant to the organization running covert UAP, UFO programs, period. They don't even care. They really don't. So then the question becomes a bigger question. Who ordered the firing on it? Right? Because one of the scandals that's going to attend this, and I know this is the DoD, Department of Defense concern, is anything that is more advanced than what the legal constitutional military has, let's call it that, or what Clinton called Team Blue, the regular military, even the most advanced stealth fighters, the most advanced weapon systems, etc. Those are generations below what are existing in these covert illegal programs based on reverse engineering, extraterrestrial devices, and advanced exotic technologies dealing with trans-dimensional physics and anti-gravity and all of that. So then the question is, who ordered a Hellfire missile fired at this thing? What was the chain of command and why? And was this object interfering with our operations in near Yemen, or was it also something that was launched by the left hand that doesn't know what the right hand's doing? In other words, we have recently debriefed a Green Beret who was in a sensitive black operation in Syria a few years ago, where he observed the Tic Tac sitting ready to be deployed. All right. And it was man-made. It's man-made. And it's an unmanned reconnaissance anti-grav device. And we've known this for many, many years. Devices similar to that have been seen and documented all the way back. If you look at our disclosure, an illustrated history book we just released, all the way back to 1967 in Pennsylvania, right? So the question is, was this an object that was a reconnaissance object after what happened in Israel on October 7th that was deployed by aspects of a secret covert governmental program, military program, or some transnational operation that the regular military doesn't know about? Now, then there's another analysis, and that is, why would these things be deployed where they know they're going to be detected in a sensitive area of military operations if it's not extraterrestrial, which I don't think this is? I think it would be done for a number of reasons. One is to tickle Team Blue, the conventional military, to see what their reaction would be. And this is part of how they test their adversaries who are in the legal government of the United States and other countries. Because you're looking at really two governments. You're looking at the government of the president and the Congress and the normal military and CIA, and then you're looking at an extremely unacknowledged, black, illegal, unsanctioned project that deals with UAPs. So this gets to be very complicated. It's like a war game. And, so there are many things more. There are more things not known about this. I'm here giving you sort of an overview, a sort of informed analysis of what it may have been and why it was done. But so far, we don't have anything from the national military in the United States as to who ordered the strike with the Hellfire missile, why, what, if anything, was this object doing that interfered with conventional military, and so forth. My concern about this is that because members of Congress, and certainly these sort of baby step hearings they're doing, which by the way are not even 1% of what we presented in 2001 at the National Press Conference. Those hearings are absolutely going forward without an adequate fund of knowledge by either the members of Congress or the people who are on the panel. The people on the
Absolutely.
panel are just woefully inadequate to even discuss the issue, frankly. And then you have someone like Miss Luna, who is, been pulled into sort of, let's just say, some counterintelligence operations in ufology, and she's being very, very much misguided. And I don't know that she's aware of it. She may be, but I don't think so. I don't think she knows the extent to which she's being misled. Now, I think other members of the panel, Moskowitz, I've spoken to some other members of Congress who attended, as well as, of course, Congressman Burleson, who is very astute and is much more developed in his understanding of this. But the chair of this task force is Miss Luna, who somehow, always wants to posit this and kept saying it was scary. Well, I'll tell you what's scary. It's scary that our regular military and members of Congress don't know what these objects are, and they think that anything zipping around in our atmosphere is alien, when it certainly isn't. At least 80, 90% of everything out there that are called a UAP or UFO is ours. And this is now being understood on a very high level of law enforcement and national security in the United States and the executive branch. But the Congress seems to be lagging in their understanding of this.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Greer, I ran for Congress in 2000, and I don't say that to boast or brag or anything, to the fact that, I have a little bit of a pedigree and knowledge of congressional hearings. And I think when you summon 4 or 5 people, one of them being a reporter, all of them with stories, no documents, and then you put forth a very curious and queer video of an object that we don't know. You don't have anybody from the DOD or Jane's Defense to tell us what we're looking at. You're firing a Hellfire missile. As crazy as this sounds, I'm actually very familiar with that armament. That is something that you would deploy against a slow-moving car, a stationary object, a tank, to some degree. Why you would deploy that at a moving target still beckons the rationale of that. And I believe this Hellfire was the ones where actual blades come out and actually try to slice through its target, and not doing a very effective job at this. I could not agree with you more. We've had this discussion about the fast moving and the tic-tac. You don't deploy unknown flying objects around men and women who are serving our country, who are on who are on ships, who are on planes, whose safety and lives are in danger. You don't fly objects into their theater of campaign without telling them and notifying them. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I could not agree more. And to bring that video up where everyone is sitting there stupefied, and the most, without sounding harsh, the most critical statement of it is, "Wow, that's scary." That's a little troubling to me, and I think they could have done a little bit more on explaining what we think this was, what was being fired at it.
Problem,
It was
John.
ridiculous.
No, but they didn't have anyone there who's a subject expert.
No,
See,
they didn't have Jane's, the DOD.
And people take issue with me. The problem with this whole subject is that just because you had a sighting in the military, does not make you an expert. Just because you have a badge, because you worked in an office at the Pentagon, does not make you an expert on this subject.
That's correct, sir.
The lack of subject experts for these committees is a huge problem, and we're trying to rectify that.
Yeah.
But and it's one of these areas where I never use the word ufology, because there's no such thing. There's no credentialed program. Now, I happen to have spent 35 years drilling down on this and have debriefed over 1,000 whistleblowers and sources and studied it, and been out in the field and had contact with the actual ET objects. But most people have no real foundation of having any informed knowledge of it. And until they start having that kind of information presented, it's just going to add confusion. So now there was one other thing that was, I think, rather upsetting about this, and this was a case presented by this journalist about an event in Russia, Soviet Union, that he claimed could have instigated World War III. So I want to unpack this a little bit in a
Sure.
nuclear war. This is more of the false narrative where you flip everything on its head. So let me explain how really good counter disinformation works and counterintelligence works. You take a real case and you spin it. This is the spinmeisters. And what the spinmeisters do, and I'll give you a great example. The night before I met, I hadn't seen him for years, one of the whistleblowers we had in 2001, Bob Salas, who was a captain who was involved at the silo in Minot, North Dakota, where the nuclear weapons were taken offline by a UFO that came over. And years later, after that, he got intercepted by people who then took his story and some others and spun it into an alien threat against our nuclear arsenal. Right. And an alien. So the threat narrative is the only narrative that will allow on Fox News, CNN, 60 Minutes, whatever, Joe Rogan. And that threat narrative is what the cabal, this transnational criminal organization, wants. Now, here, what really happened, he and others told me that he felt that ETs were trying to tell us, don't go to nuclear war. This was in the darkest days of the Cold War.
Right.
And if you do, it'll destroy all life on Earth, and we can slow that down. And the same thing, by the way, that happened here in the United States and the United Kingdom with nuclear weapons facilities happened in the Soviet Union, because these interstellar civilizations have been trying to stop us from destroying the world and ourselves and them by slowing down this arms race starting in the mid-40s. This is why the very first major sightings happened in the modern era in around White Sands and around
the Trinity site. Yeah.
The Trinity site, but also Roswell. Roswell was the only nuclear weapon storage facility on Earth in 1947. So the ETs, far from trying to start World War III in a nuclear war, which is what this nonsense at the hearing said, they've been trying for 80 years to do the opposite.
Right.
Right. So
I agree. I totally agree.
Where you take one fact and you can split it, and you can take it. Here's the truth of it, is that they've been trying to warn us and stop us from doing this and blowing up the world. And then you have the buffoonery of the UFO subculture going, oh, they're doing things that could lead to World War III. No, they're actually trying to stop this madness and have been for 80 years. So I think this is one of the real problems, is you have people with these agendas, and who's going to benefit from that? Now, let me give you a contrast. We have in our archive, if anyone wants to see it, a Colonel Anatoly Sitnov, 1979, near Kharkiv, Ukraine. And there was we have the testimony of this colonel who was present at an event where there were nuclear weapons stored in this area. And this is in our archive. We'll put a link to it so you can see it, those of you listening. And basically what happened is that there was a nuclear weapon that was overheating. And we weren't really aware of it. The ETs were. A UFO came in, and some of the guards were put sort of in suspended animation, which we've heard happening before. Right. And there were a few ETs that went in suits and went in and fixed that problem, prevented that weapon from overheating and blowing up, because had it detonated, it would have looked like a launch or an attack, and it could have led to World War III. There are many accounts where the ETs, in fact, have done things like I just described. And this is from a military officer in the Soviet Union who was there. And these sort of cases prove the fact that on the opposite of what Knapp was saying, where they're doing things that could cause us to go into nuclear war, they're actually doing things to stop it. and has
Agreed.
for 80 years.
Yeah.
So I think that this is exactly the kind of spin meistering that would benefit who? The military industrial complex.
Of course.
Right? You create this massive threat out there, and therefore let's get more trillions of dollars to go to these robber barons under a false pretext.
Fight the new boogeyman.
This is what I wrote about in 1999 when I wrote the paper and warned that, and I called it the disclosure that serves secrecy. In other words, a disclosure that would serve the secret agenda of this group of people who have been lying to the American people and staging false events for 80 years. And it's mostly a psyop. So, the big problem with this is that I'm the guy who started the Disclosure Project in the 90s. But what I see happening is that disclosure is being hijacked by this kind of spin by people who are actually kind of carrying the message of this crime syndicate.
Well said.
That's that.
Yeah, I agree. You have to if you want to spin the narrative that extraterrestrials are here to destroy us and cause our destruction, show me. I did, Dr. Gray. I think you would agree. Show me in 80 years where that has happened. All we have are stories, a lot of anecdotal, but stories nonetheless of extraterrestrials, interdimensional, whatever they may be, doing the exact opposite. So again, you're right. It's the new boogeyman. Keep the money flowing to the DOD, and I have a fundamental problem with that, as I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, but it's not even going to the mainline military. Those guys, look, having briefed generals and heads of the Defense Intelligence Agency and the people like that, admirals and others who are in sitting positions at the Pentagon, they don't know anything about this. And this is what most people don't realize. The people who are read in are part of the criminal operations. The ones who don't, you could be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and you're not read in. This is a mistake everyone makes. The first CI director I briefed wasn't read in, and nor was the president. It was back in the Clinton era. And so I think people don't realize that there's two tracks here. Yes. One is the very deep cover illegal track, and there are some CI directors who know and some don't. Right. It depends on where they've come from.
Correct.
But they're part of this. They're under a non-official cover status, NOC status. So I think in this case, the other problem is when you look at the history of our thermonuclear weapons, when we detonated the first one, it puts out an electromagnetic pulse, but it also has within it a scalar signal that sort of rips through space-time faster than the speed of light and disrupts interstellar and extraterrestrial and transdimensional travel and communications. So this is the other part of this that no one talks about. And you really have to do a deep dive into the scalar technologies and electromagnetic pulse effects to understand why when we do detonate these objects, these bombs, it causes a huge problem, not just here, but elsewhere in the universe. And I think this was something that Oppenheimer and Teller and others did not anticipate until it happened. And then they realized, oh, well,
like a supernova or an exploding star that we see 1,000 years later. Can I ask you a question? Do you think that the nuclear tests, especially the ones in New Mexico and Trinity and whatnot, do you think that is still reverberating through the solar system and the Milky Way or beyond, or do you think that it has a firewall that it stops? I would be very interested to know that, because if it's going to go like continue like a lights of us seeing a star that exploded and we see it 1,000 years later, is the planet still going to be sending out this massive the kids have the nuclear bomb? What is your take on that?
Oh yeah, because anything moving at the speed of light moves at 186,000 miles per second,
right?
Which is the speed of light. That would be the electromagnetic pulse. But the scalar is more like quantum entanglement. It's a longitudinal. It's not a waveform. It's a point that goes out in a straight line, and it goes transdimensionally, virtually instantaneously. And that's where you get this. This is why I always say a big red flag, warning, warning, flashing
Yeah.
light went over the earth in 1945 and then got worsened with the thermonuclear weapons of when we detonated in the early 50s, the first hydrogen or thermonuclear, which is much more destructive than an atomic bomb of the 40s.
Were those the Bikini Atoll ones?
Yeah, those, but yes, and that's when we had the
Oh,
the 9 UFOs that flew over the Capitol. Remember?
Right.
That was when, but that was the ETs sending a warning. This is not good.
Yeah.
And we know this. Now the problem is when you're dealing with people who are very busy, whether it's the president or members of Congress, kind of people I deal with, they don't have time to drill down on all this nuance, and they don't have any. Here's the other problem with these hearings. They don't have, I know for a fact, there are no staff experts, not one. Now, Congressman Burleson has Mr. Grush, but Mr. Grush is a young man who just learned and got involved with this a very few years ago. When I first met him, as maybe he was in his mid 30s, and really was not someone who was read in and had studied the matter. So there aren't any really, there's not a group of very experienced scientists and subject experts advising them. And since they have no staff full-time dedicated to it, and they have no time themselves to drill down deeply, these mistakes are going to happen. And I recommended that they form a select committee that gets funded, that has subject experts and not just buffoonery, and that they really get to drill down on this. But unfortunately, that was supposed to happen even at the Senate Intelligence Committee level when I first started providing them information nearly 4 years ago. But that funding got blocked. The Select Committee, the House Oversight folks wanted, that got blocked. Are
you talking about a committee that studied like the JFK assassination or?
Well, Select Committee, meaning that it has its own subpoena power. It has its own funding. It has a staff of experts to drill down. It's not an ad hoc. Remember what's going on now.
Right.
They're doing the best they can, Burleson and others, because they don't have any dedicated staff to this.
Right.
And there are no subject experts on the payroll, and they don't have any subpoena power. And my last comment about the hearings before we move on to your important case is that aside from that, they also, unfortunately, have never been given the authorization to issue subpoenas like they should, because that now has to go through the chair of the House Oversight Committee, which would be Congressman Comer of Kentucky. And the chair can authorize that, but they are not doing subpoenas. Now, I have handed off to them, I don't know what, Raven, may have 40, 50 names of people to be subpoenaed. Mm-hmm. We have people who are more consequential, way more consequential than any of the people who have been on these hearings that don't need a subpoena, but they won't call them because they're going to expose things that folks don't want to hear, basically. It's too much information. The information of people like Maureen Herrera, who saw the man-made UFO abducting people for human experimentation in Indonesia, et cetera, and so on. So, we have people who will go up there right now without a subpoena, but they won't call them. Instead, they're going to call a UFO journalist. Now, you go figure out what that's about, folks. I mean, I hate to tell you, but this is unbelievable. But now, on top of the ones who go without a subpoena, we have people who can be subpoenaed, who want to be subpoenaed. Right. But they want it. And I have handed off that information, and they won't subpoena any of them. So right now, I think the big action is going to be in law enforcement. It's going to be in investigations in the executive branch. But I'm hoping Congress will pick up the pace of this and have more consequential hearings with legitimate whistleblowers with subpoenas in the near future. That's what we're hoping for, and that's what we're recommending.
Yeah. And I think you would agree, and I'm sure your viewers would agree. I think the apprehension of having and forming a select committee is I don't think anyone's going to like what they find.
Mhm.
And that's something that we all
Yeah.
have to understand, that we are potentially in uncharted ground that Congress may not want to weed through. So I pray for all of us, and I pray that Congress that should be representing us does more of a job of managing the American people that they certainly call people
In
like
defense of
yourself
the
that
member,
has the
let me say
documents
something
and
here, because I talk privately with many members of Congress. They want to do what we're talking about. The bureaucracy and the staffers and the administrative state blocks them. I mean, Congressman Burleson said that on the record, that
Yeah.
there were things that he wanted to move through, that there were unelected bureaucrats who blocked it. And he's a member of Congress. So this is where you have an upside down system where the people's representatives get overrun
Yeah.
by bureaucrats that are in the administrative end of things, which is sort of astonishing. Most people wouldn't believe it, but I talk to members of Congress and senators all the time, and this is routinely happens because these bad actors have embedded non-official cover, NOCs, on the staff of key committees and members of Congress to block and change things all the time. The system it's like a metastatic cancer, where the whole system is riddled with these sort of operatives. And that's what happens. It is a metastatic cancer that's gotten out of control. And I think that most people don't realize that a member of Congress by himself or herself can only do so much. But I'm hoping still that they can continue on and make some progress. Well, let's pivot to
and call you eventually.
Oh, I don't.
Can I just say something for 30 seconds? I find
Sure,
it.
go ahead,
I am not going to. This is not a self pat, but I'm sorry, folks. I find it very ironic. You have 5 people testifying yesterday with no documents, very little experience, and you have 2 people right now on the camera, myself and Dr. Greer, who one of our main tenets is that we have documents, we have the FOIAs, we have leaked information that is firsthand knowledge. You're talking about 2 men right now that could go to Congress with inches thick dossiers, and I agree with, and I hear your frustration, by the way, as your friend. I hear your frustration, the tetrabyte plus of a dossier that you have in my inches thick dossier of code names and facilities and whistleblower names, and we're on the sideline, and these people are called with stories. So I just want to say I understand your frustration. I feel it too, and it's it's criminal. So borderline, more metaphorically criminal. So I just wanted to say that.
The more things change, the more they stay.
You got it, man.
I mean, if you were to press the rewind button to the fake hearings of the 60s and 70s, it wouldn't be any different than now.
Right.
I mean, it's like, but nobody knows this history. This is the other problem. There's a paucity of institutional memory in the Congress and in the public and in the media of the way this game has been played all the way from the 50s till now.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty much the same playbook, but nobody knows the prior operational, manual, and they're just making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And it's if it wasn't tragic and so dangerous for our future, it'd be comical because there's no real great mystery to how to set this up. But every panel and every hearing that's ever happened on this subject has ended up being diverted into this, there's nothing here to see, or gee, we don't know. Yeah, we do know. And one of the things the night before, I was talking to some people who were going to be at the hearing, and they said, about the phenomena. I said, which phenomena? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, UAP is a wastebasket term like UFO. There are 3 things going on. There's extraterrestrial, there's interdimensional, separate, and there's man-made, which is the dominant thing that people are seeing now, or the man-made things, objects. And the ones from other dimensional, extra-dimensional, originate in another dimensional, but not another star system. An extraterrestrial, interstellar system traverses other dimensions to get from there to here, but originates from another planet and star system, but is not based in another dimension. Now, most people, these three major categories that all the different UFO phenomenon fall into, they're not even asking the question, what part of this is this from? Because they don't even know.
Right.
And I liken it to a doctor who is, someone comes in, I'm an emergency guy with chest pain, and you say, oh, it's a heart attack. And you give them the TPA and dissolve the clot. Well, it actually, maybe it was a dissecting thoracic aneurysm, and you give that and they're dead in 5 minutes.
Right.
So you have a bunch of unskilled physicians up there who don't even know that there are three major categories of phenomena, plural, going on, all being labeled the same thing. So this is like day one of kindergarten. This is like learning your alphabet and how to add 1 and 1 is 2. But be honest with you, the UFO subculture and the people in there at these committees, they don't even know this, what I just said. I would say that 99% of everyone in the UFO subculture don't know what I just said. And
do you remember the day that you were schooling me about that?
Yeah.
This guy, Dr. Greer, has an extreme amount of patience, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you. But you're right. You have to.
It's a paradigm.
Right.
It blows people's minds.
You have to know what you're dealing with categorically and on every level. I could not agree more.
But there's no critical. Here's the problem. Right now, anything that goes bump in the night that's like something out of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
The Netflix movie, like the Montauk experiments that were from other dimensions. Those weren't extraterrestrials, but they're real and they're creepy. But everyone would call it an alien, but it's not. Okay, so this is not helpful if you're trying to be scientific and specific and have discernment. But this is now a very, very, I think, politically incorrect to have any discernment or information or knowledge about anything. And as Patrick Daniel Moynihan, the senior senator from New York, said, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not their own set of facts.
What is your fact line again? Don't bother me. Can you say that again?
Nobody's willing to look at the facts, and so I just go,
don't bother me with facts.
Don't make it my fact. My opinion's made up.
So
I think this is another big problem. But look, all we can do is continue to advise. Luckily, you will notice in the hearing, and we can put a link to this, Raven, in this show. We had presented to the committee and to Congressman Burleson about a 10-page report for the record, and he held it up, and it was submitted, and Luna accepted it, and it actually has some of these whistleblowers named and some are code named in there, and then it's sort of a cover letter from me that explains all of this. But so that's in the congressional record, and everybody can see it. I think even before they had the hearing, something like 12 or 13,000 people had downloaded it and hundreds of thousands had viewed it. But I think this is, we'll just continue to submit this sort of information and then hope for the best and say a prayer. It's a Hail Mary pass at this point.
Dr. Greer, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I do think the big action isn't going to happen necessarily there. The big action is happening at the executive branch level and law enforcement. And I can't go too much into that, but I will tell you that it's very big progress and very promising, extremely promising. So let's get to your case. I mean, once you start at the beginning of this strange case,
boy,
just the facts, outline it, when it started, when it
first
happened.
time I'm ever going to do that, just fact-based, hold the hyperbole. Your viewers don't deserve that. I know for a fact that this broadcast between yourself and I have a lot of eyes on it, and I understand that, and I'm very cognizant of that. And I just want to tell people the footage which you are about to witness is potentially jaw-dropping if you've never seen it before. This is not a CGI alien interview that floated around 5 years ago. This is something very old, very non-CGI. And I just want everyone to know It's
Well,
very
wait.
important.
Let's
Go
just go
ahead.
through the facts. I want you to
Right.
summarize the
I just
tape.
wanted to just preface this
Yeah.
is that I went at this as a true scientific investigator, thinking I was going to prove it was a hoax. And I'm 6 years, $27,000 later,
Mhm.
and I cannot prove this is a hoax. It's actually the needle is buried the other way. On that note, the alien interview. We think that it started in 1997 with this mockumentary that was on TV, and it didn't. In 1986, former CIA pilot John Lear goes on George Knapp's sub television news program and talks about that a videotape of an extraterrestrial out at S4 south of Area 51 has been garnered, and it's going to be exposed to the public. That's in 1986. 1988, allegedly, people like Bill Moore, some journalists, allegedly were going to be flown to Washington, D.C. to view this alien interview tape on behalf of the United States government. The stock market crashed. This would have been in 87. The stock market crashed, and that meeting, that incredible meeting, was canceled. In 1989, Bob Lazar steps forward, talks about S4, a facility that John Lear was talking about. So there's a repetitive theme here that there is this super secret facility south of Area 51, and people don't even know what Area 51 is yet. I find that oddly informative. In 1991, from our investigation on April 22nd, at 3:15 in the afternoon, a interstellar haploid other gray alien, tan in color, round eyes, was brought into the interrogation suite at what we now know under the building in the facility S2 Alpha. We have been told there is no S4 with hangars in the mountains, so on and so forth. That the AHC, the Alien Housing Center, is bizarre and crazy as that sounds, resides under a building south of Area 51 called S2 Alpha. In the homage of my friend Dr. Greer, we have the FOIA of that facility being built in the early 60s. Very important. Next to that facility is the American Pathology Institute, which we have also found that many of these alleged retention facilities for living extraterrestrials, allegedly, ladies and gentlemen, also have a company next door adjacent to some sort of bio-research pathological facility. I find that, again, oddly coincidental. This film, unbeknownst to the DIA, which runs the extraterrestrial retention and an interrogation program under Project Aquarius. Dr. Greer is very familiar with the Defense Intelligence Agency. This film was stolen because a very small secret cabal of men, a biologist, 2 sentries, and we think under the tacit wink of the project leader, a Major Thomas Mack, who was with the Air Force Advisory Scientific Committee. He was the project leader of Project Aquarius, where this alien retention and facility was housed. And Project Aquarius was all things extraterrestrial contact with Homo sapiens sapiens. Under that, we had Project Looking Glass, Galileo, and on and on. This film of this being, which Raven will show, was then leaked and smuggled off of Area 51
Wait, go back. What was the date of the interview and
Sure.
the film, and when it was actually created?
Yeah, this interview, this film you're about to see, was created. It was very late in the series with this being, late into the telepathic thought projection interviews with this being. It came to the facility in 1989. This is April 22nd, 1991 at 3:15 in the afternoon, created for the questions submitted for the Department of Naval Intelligence, which officially to this day doesn't exist. I am so proud to say that we have proved beyond a doubt the Department of Naval Intelligence exists and does prove a tenet of Bob Lazar's story. This film was snuck off the base. It was captured, held for 5 years. And in 1996.
So let's go back. Wait.
Go ahead. Sure.
I'm very much forensic.
Okay.
I'm a doctor. Who took it off the base, and what's the provenance of the film? Provenance meaning the authenticity of its chain of custody, et cetera.
Right. The United States, this is jumping forward a little bit, but we got a document that talked about the provenance, the chain of events, how the theft occurred. The theft occurred almost movie-esque like. It was actually let out of S2 Alpha because you are weighed in the nude. And when you come in, you are weighed in the nude. When you come out, nothing is getting out of this facility. I think everyone would probably understand that. One of the cabal members, the disgruntled employees, was the United States Air Force cameraman who we have never known. He is the hero in all of this. He took a 3-minute snippet of this film, and that is what he brought to Las Vegas and took it off base he first put it into a burn bag in a GSA approved vault, held it for 3 days, and then he snuck that burn bag in his gym bag off of the base of Area 51. We have talked with 7 people that have been at Area 51 in the 90s. They've all said the same narrative. Times it was draconian, times the outlying security was lax. Sometimes the guards checked your purse. Sometimes they didn't check your purse or your briefcase. I found that striking. And that's how this 3-minute segment of this film left the base. It was brought to Las Vegas. Go ahead.
The film VHS, or was it actually?
Great question. We have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, 3 forensic and film video experts all say that this film was originally on 16 millimeter film, not VHS, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
And we have found out that in 1991, the United States government, Audio Visualization Department of the United States government, and EG&G, which did the super secret filming for the United States government. Remember EG&G, because this is where the whistleblower comes in, that they were still using 16 millimeter film. Right. So that's very, very important to remember that this completely jives and completely walks in lockstep with what the government was using in 1991. And if this was a hoax started in 1996, it was very, very hard for anyone to find any film stock footage that was 16 millimeter to use in, let's say, a mockumentary. Dr. Greer, we move forward to 1996. 1996 in the spring, an alleged former government employee dressed in a 3-piece suit, wearing a ponytail, a counterculture type person, highly educated, starts making the rounds in Hollywood to sell this 3-minute tape. This is coming on the heels of the alien interview. He gets a meeting with Fox, Jamie Darnell, and their unscripted television department. This is bizarre. They cannot guarantee his safety. They cannot guarantee his anonymity. They think that he's a little weird, that he's a pain in the, I will refrain from swearing. And they basically shoo him out of the Fox studio lot. This former government employee, allegedly, walks across the street. He gets Variety magazine because his mission is to sell this and put this on TV and expose this to the world. He sees a video production company. This is very important. A second-tier video production company that is putting out a Rodney Dangerfield comedic golf video. And he thinks to himself, well, if Fox is not going to help me, maybe somebody lower down the food chain, and I would agree with this, would help me and would put this out. He calls, he talks to the CEO, Tom Coleman, who I've been in contact with for 6 years. 6 years. They bring him in. They pop in this VHS tape. They see this bizarre alien being interviewed, looking, very bizarrely into the camera. The footage is a blue hue, which I gave to Raven. This is one of the big tenets of the skeptics. It's dark and it must be a puppet. The original VHS had a blue hue, clearly showing the thorax and the arms and the shoulders, and of course the neck and the head. It looks like a closed circuit television camera. This is how it originally came to Rocket Pictures, not the darkened film. Rocket Pictures production did that for theatrical effect. They find the same thing that Fox does. This Victor is weird. He won't yet give his real name. He doesn't drive. They make an agreement for payment. We think $25,000 to $30,000 because it's the follow the money in this. How we prove there is not the amount of money garnered to warrant doing something like this. It just costs too much. And Victor produces a tattered Social Security card with the name. And I jump forward, but this is why I came on, with a tattered Social Security card named Stanton John Willett with a 262 prefix, which means he was originally born in Florida. And the director was defiant. The first name was Stanton, not John, because we found a John Stanton Willett. He leaves. He comes back and they do a unrehearsed, very important, unrehearsed hour and a half on Coast to Coast Art Bell, where Victor is taking unrehearsed questions so eloquently that people are saying, this guy sounds like a project manager of a government program. This guy sounds like my boss at Raytheon. This guy is scientific in nature. 2 months later, the documentary comes out on the UPN network, not Fox, on a program called Strange Universe. And they paid Rocket Pictures for this 1 hour documentary. So in Reicher Entertainment, which had Strange Universe, was on the ropes financially. Again, follow the money. In my case, the lack of the money. We see this video, Doctor. It's bizarre. It's a tan alien, not gray. Why would you hoax a video with a tan alien and not have a typical gray? It has round eyes. The skin is moving and oscillating around the ocular cavity and around the eyes. The mouth is opening and closing seamlessly once you zoom into the mouth, unlike any animatronic being that we've ever seen up to this point. Black foam is coming out of its mouth as discharge. Medics come in. Victor tells us that the being had microbes form colonies in its respiratory system. And this is why it was having some sort of a respiratory attack. And the thrust of my first investigation, this green, bizarre, alleged physiological monitor is next to the beam with the blip, the physiological blip going up and down. It is moving off the screen bottom. It is not holding onto the bottom like a regular EKG or any kind of physiological monitor that we see. Very bizarre, green in nature, and it seems to be coinciding more erratic with the beans coughing. And EMT and doctors that we showed this to were perplexed and said, all of them, and Jaime Musan showed us the 13 cardiothoracic surgeons and cardiovascular surgeons who all said, this being is having some sort of cardiovascular event, and that blip is seemingly to be in sync with the coughs of this being. A very bizarre. The video ends. Victor says, do what you want with the film, investigate me. I'm coming out because I don't believe that the government should hold this knowledge against the American people, that the government people running this program are very average intellectually at the top. Victor comes across as very bitter, very angry, and highly intelligent. And he uses 2 words, and I could not have a person in front of me to talk to this about. He says, and this is what struck me in 97, have no idea about ufology. He said the being starts to medically flag. And I remember this on my couch watching it and going, that is an odd term. I have never heard of that term. I know Hollywood. I know screenwriting, writers. I don't think a 20-something-year-old writer could think of the word medically flag or the term something that I've never heard before. I've heard flagging, of course. And then he says the being was in the interview suite. He doesn't say room. He doesn't say in the interview level. Calls it a suite which is a much more comfortable accommodation. For some reason, those two words struck me. Months later, I'm having a regular checkup. My physician at the time in 97 was a doctor in Korea. And I said, Dr. Z, what is medically flagging? Dr. Greer, he reeled back to me. He goes, where did you hear that from? And I said, it was in a documentary, but they said it's a hoax and this whistleblower's a hoax. And he goes, I haven't heard that since Korea. That's a medical terminology that was used a lot in the government and in my time in Korea. I said, would a 20-something-year-old writer know that terminology? This is before Wikipedia or the Urban Dictionary. And my doctor's reaction to that terminology simply made me say, I don't know when. But something is weird with this video. The doctors are not in pressurized suits to really hype up the hoax. There are two military Army officers in the foreground only showing their shoulders. Why would you dress them in Army attire and not show their whole body? The alien is tan. What is going on with this film? And I just knew in the back of my mind, I'll pause here, that eventually one day I would research to find out what the truth is. Not if it's real, but what the truth is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is the state of the research at this point about this film?
Before Jon Stewart hits it in 2019, let me tell you one more very quick information. Victor comes back.
Run out of time soon.
Okay. Okay. So let's jump first. Okay. I researched the monitor. Hewlett Packard, people doing their PhD in physiological monitors have no idea what that monitor is. Remember, a second-tier production company. Whitley Strieber comes forward in 2016 and says, I think this film, My Alien Interview, is real. I saw that green blip in the corner of my eye as I was writing the book Communion. I think it's a way that extraterrestrials communicate with human beings. I never told anybody. So how did this second-tier video production company know to put that bizarre green blip in its video? Folks, you can't get around that. Okay, we had the film analyzed, 16 millimeter from Bill Mums, who National Geographic's hired for their video documentation for a Bigfoot film. Don't laugh, this is National Geographic. Bill Mums said, there's a head scratcher. That alien does not have any indents or creases in its armpits. Every foam latex doll, animatronic puppet has creases from the 50s until 2 hours ago. And I don't know how a second-tier production company could reinvent foam latex dolls. We got the proof that it's not S4, Bob Lazar's S4, that it's S2 Alpha. We have proved that the Department of Naval Intelligence is real. An aviator told us he was recruited by the DNI. We found the Department of Naval Intelligence, not office, department, in a conference brochure in Canada with a Major Pinzel representing the Department of Naval Intelligence and a CIA director level retired personnel told me in an offhanded conversation, yes, the DNI is real. It's an agency buried inside the Department of Navy. How did Bob Lazar know that? And more importantly, why would this video production company have the guts to put a unknown hoaxed 3-letter acronym of a department that doesn't exist on the bottom of the film, and that owner's signature on the bottom of the film? The DNI 27 cost like $3,000 back then. When you have no money, I don't think a video production company would spend the money to emblazon a DNI and the number 27, which is, in my opinion, the bombshell. We find out that the code to get into this facility, the alien retention and interrogation facility, the code is Yankee white, Yankee black. Dr. Greer, do you know what the numerical number of that code is? Meaning, if you don't have this level of above top secret clearance, you cannot get into this program and see or watch any documentation of this program. That level number is number 27. I ask your viewers, how could a cheesy video production company know that 30 years later, that the actual numerical number, the security number that was for Yankee White, which means contact with the president, to get into, to see this retention and interrogation interview program, is the number 27. I just don't believe that is absolutely even remotely possible. Other queer things have happened, Doctor, in the past 5 years. We have a guy that does reverse speech on CIA agents, presidents, astronauts. He says, I think every whistleblower coming forward in ufology is full of it. But there's one guy I believe, because of his reverse speech, whether you believe in this science or not. And he said, do you know the whistleblower Victor? I believe that man is telling the truth. His reverse speech said, they are in my head in Zeta Reticuli, allegedly the star system where this extraterrestrial, this haploid, it was only carried one sexual chromosome, allegedly came from. This reverse speech said the only person in ufology, I think, telling the truth is the whistleblower viewer, is Victor. We've had 2 sets of remote viewing groups and blind studies who all took on this challenge, not knowing what they were seeing. They were describing a tan being, a being in distress, a being that was terrified, which I thought was phenomenal. He was in a no man's land, which is Papoose Lake. It's a nuclear fallout area.
Yep.
And I find that remarkable. I find that absolutely 2 groups, blind study, both said the same thing, making Richard Dolan come forward publicly to say, I thought Jon Stewart was crazy. This film has got to be real. Let me lastly say one more thing, as I bypassed a lot of the research, but that's fine. And that is this. We finally found Stanton John Willett. He is on an EG&G entry log for Area 51. I am proud to say that I am, to this, under my opinion, the only person to bring out a document that ever was sitting at Area 51. The entry log of Stanton John Willett. He was a real person. He could have gotten into Area 51 with a legal government assumed name. So we do realize that could be possible.
Right. In
the entry log, from the time frame, it was from 88 to 93. He was working for EG&G, and I have the paper. He was there at Area 51, which is a bona fide that he was telling the director of this documentary the truth, that his name was Stanton John Willett. We have spent thousands of dollars looking for him. He has been bleached. He has been sheep dipped, but we do know his last location for the 08 documentary.
What those words mean. You need to say what bleached and sheep dipped.
Okay, bleached and sheep dipped is an intelligence jargon, an intelligence phrase, meaning they wipe out any bit of your biography that would lead anyone researching you back to the intelligence covert project that you were part of. Bleaching, sheep dip. These are 2 intelligence words. And we have had intelligence people tell us that without a doubt, Victor has been sheep dipped. We have the stenographer. Folks, please listen to me. The stenographer a month ago came forward to me who transcribed the note cards from military people or telepaths communicating thought projection with these beings. She said my particular being was afraid. This was his first mission. He was confused. It was a hard landing. He was not the leader of the group. It was his fault. He is afraid. He is sick. He is dying. He is alone. And he wonders where the rest of the crew of that ship is. And we have also interviewed 2 of the widows of the telepath. I want to say the jaw-dropping, when Raven shows the footage, you're going to see 2 medics come in. The doctor on the being's right shoulder to our left is named Dr. Wilford Webb Wilson. We have spoken to his widow. She has identified that is her husband, an U.S. Air Force military doctor. She has identified that is her husband on the being's right. She said he was super secretive. It almost cost their marriage because of how secretive he was. And she thanked me for solving, think about this, for solving a family secret. And she now understands why her husband, Webb Wilson, Dr. Webb Wilson, died in 2014 on the right of that being, was so secretive. I just want to ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. How could we have an actual United States Air Force doctor identified by his wife in a alleged fake alien video? I'm sorry. I just don't find any of my information going at it like a hoax to jive. I gave up because I can't find anybody with credible information to tell me why, particularly that video is a hoax. Thank you for your time.
This is, but part of it is that, did you mention that someone actually obtained the original 16 millimeter film? Or where is that film?
The 16 millimeter film its disposition right now is unknown.
Okay.
We have the original VHS tape from Victor with the blue hue. It's startling. It's closed circuit television-esque looking footage. You could tell this was taken off of some closed circuit camera, government facility, or copied off of 16 millimeter onto.
This is your classic. Let's talk about some big picture
Sure.
things here for a moment, while we still have a little time.
Sure.
First of all, EG&G is a prime contractor and has been since the 50s at least out in that area. That area is an old facility, so-called Area 51. It's a grid. The more important areas are Area 52, 3, out near the lake, and also Groom Lake and
Tonopah. Is Tonopah still active? I'm not sure.
And Pahut Mesa, Groom Lake. Those are the more critical areas. But we do know from current whistleblowers we're working with who are still alive that a number of these facilities do have living extraterrestrial biological entities that are being interrogated and tortured, and they're euphemistically called refugees, but they're ones that have survived the targeting and downing of extraterrestrial vehicles. Now, I have been at 2 black sites where the electromagnetic pulse and scalar weapons have been deployed to down these objects about 2 years ago, actually this month. I was at these 2 places, and in fact, the operators out there said point blank that there were often ones that did not survive the downing, but when they do, they are captured and they are retained in these facilities, and that there are a number of them still living that need to be freed and liberated. This is something that has been kicked over to the law enforcement strike team people, tactical teams that I've been advising. At a certain point, that needs to happen because it's a atrocity what's going on.
Yes.
And don't forget, all the way back to the 40s with the events in New Mexico, we had an Army intelligence man surface before he died, who saw one of the last living ETs from the Roswell event, or somewhere in New Mexico. He's pretty sure it was Roswell, at Camp Perry here in Virginia. That was in a cage with wearing
boxer shorts, right? Right.
Yes. Yes, and
it's crazy.
And he said it was so sad, and that was in 1951. So we do know that this is the standard operating procedure of debriefing, torturing. Many of them don't survive.
Thank you for saying that.
But this is so all of that is not unusual, as bizarre as this whole story is.
Right.
And one thing I will say, so many times evidence that's good is handled in a way and then broadcast in tabloid media or in the UFO subculture in a way that then discredits it. In other words, the evidence in itself on its own would be okay, but it's handled in a way that would lead any rational scientist or political leader to conclude it was rubbish. So this is the as Lord Hill Norton, who is the 5-star admiral, the Sea Lord, who used to be head of the Ministry of Defense in Great Britain, who I met with years ago in the 90s. He said it's the rubbishing of the matter in the tabloids. He called it the rubbishing of the matter. So unfortunately, often what will happen is that some very good evidence in a very unsophisticated way by people who obtain it ends up getting handled in a way that discredits it, even if it's real. And that is what's happened with this and many other cases that I'm aware of. And I think this is one of the real problems with this subject. We do know that, for example, that kind of outlet versus 60 Minutes will cover something like this. Or the National Enquirer was set up by PSYOP guy from the CIA. He was an MIT guy who was CIA Psychological Warfare Division, who
Yep.
set up the National Enquirer explicitly so that these sort of stories could get tracked into a tabloid, that even if they were true, of course, it was some false stuff, some real stuff, but the real stuff would be immediately neutralized by guilty by association, right?
Right.
And that's why this organization is very crafty at being sure that the most ridiculous stuff gets pushed to the front, and the real stuff is suppressed or can only come out through a tabloid like the National Enquirer or something.
Right.
So this is a pattern. I'm trying to give people. Here's one of the things that we all have to do. We have to start making these bigger assessments of how counterintelligence and disinformation works, because as disclosure, I think it's almost certain that it's all going to come out in the next 6 months to 2 years. But if it comes out the way that they're trying to spin it into this direction of a threat and all kinds of false information,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. The real information is going to get completely attached to the false information.
Yeah.
And the real information will then empower the false narrative. And this is exactly what we see going on now with these, the spin meisters hearings and whatnot.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things people need to look at. Now, do we want to go to some questions, Raven?
Can I just make one last 30-second comment?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, and Dr. Greer,
Yep.
we've been communicating with Dr. Greer for 5 years, folks.
Yep.
If all of this is crazy, if that film is a hoax, if it's all BS, the DOD, the NSA, according to Apple, according to Intel people, because of my FOIA request, my emails have been stolen 3 times. Mm-hmm. There have been comments made to other people from the DIA. We know Jon Stewart very well. His FOIAs are sent up trip flares. I'm just simply asking this. If it's all a hoax, if it's all BS, why? Why have I caused such a stir in Intel for them to steal emails off my phone 3 times, to the point where the FBI, local police, and the Apple Corporation are stymied? And that's just something for all of you to think about.
Yeah, I have this happen on a daily basis.
I know you do. You told me that when I first met you.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Literally on a daily basis. So, I mean, and since 1991.
You told me, get ready to buy a couple of laptops and throw them out and get new ones. Yeah, I remember it specifically.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. One of the things we want to do with this, I want to put out a call to everyone listening. If you have any actionable intelligence on this case or anything similar, because let's just step away from this particular event. Remember that there have been dozens and dozens and hundreds of these sort of ET events.
Yes, sir.
And there are bound to be people who have been present, like that doctor who just died 11 years ago in 2014.
That's right.
There are bound to be people who handled the film footage or who were there in the interrogation. We now have a mechanism, not through the Congress, but through law enforcement, to immunize and protect anyone who comes forward. So contact me. We have at our website, drstevengreer.com, a box, contact box that is for whistleblowers, witnesses. It'll be held very confidentially. But if you have information on this case or similar cases related to extraterrestrial craft being downed, ETs being interrogated, or anything else of significance on the UAP, UFO subject, you can contact us there. But there may be still people out there who were involved directly in one way or another with this particular case that you're dealing with.
Yes, sir.
The interview case.
Yes,
and
sir.
We need to see if they can come forward with any corroborating information or documents or what have you. So, and
please do. Please do.
If there's one bit of film footage that got smuggled out, there's others. And let me make one other clear statement. You are not breaking the law when you remove documents or material from these facilities.
Can you explain that? Telling me something new.
Yeah. So it was determined back in the mid-90s that because the president and key people in the Congress that we had briefed were being denied access to these operations, that they were illegal black projects. So you have black projects that are known by the president and the Gang of Eight in the Congress.
Right.
And then you have these projects which are being run unconstitutionally. For that reason, all NDAs are negated. You're not bound by your non-disclosure agreement. The top secret clearance on all of this has been stripped. I can tell you that senior administration, law enforcement, and congressional people I've met with now know that this is a massive RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization, and that they are committing multiple criminal activities up to and including treason, murder, kidnapping, embezzlement of federal funds. For that reason, all UFO, ET related, and UAP projects, all material, all witnesses, all documents, film footage, even physical items or bodies are fair game to be brought forward now. And that there is no one contesting what I just said, no one in the national security system. So, and I'm plugged in at a very high level. So this means people should have, they have a clear playing field right now to come forward. Moreover, the people in the law enforcement have the ability to immunize them and put a net around them to protect them, to see and surveil if there's anyone who tries to harass them. So I suggest that people walk through the door that's open right now, because who knows how long it'll be open.
Right.
And that people should come forward now in larger numbers. That's what we're calling for.
We do have a question coming in from one of our members.
Okay.
If either of you can talk a little bit more about S2 and S3 and how this all relates to Area 51.
Yeah, one of the greatest cold water moments of this whole investigation, I'm thinking S4, S4, S4. And then an intel person say, you're looking like a fool with people in the know. This hangars in the mountain, Bob Lazar, it's S4 is sub-level 4 of the alien housing center, which resides on top of S2 Annex or S2 Alpha Annex. And that is the building with 4 levels underneath it where people talk about S4, sub-level 4 of the S2 Alpha Annex. This is to the left of Papoose Lake. I've provided Raven with 2 satellite photos of it. Folks, take this to the bank. This is where the beings are housed, retained, and interrogated. S2 Alpha. And you know, following Dr. Greer's Eye of the Documents, we have a FOIA from 1962-ish where this facility was built to take the live beings from the BBS OPNAC Oceanic Platform for North Atlantic in the Bermuda Biological Station, coming from the SOM manual. They needed a new facility, and it was this S2 Alpha facility. And there have been more than people than not who have said this S4 Bob Lazar hangars in the side of the mountain is a myth. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you what I was told, but I know I've seen the satellite photo and I've seen the FOIA. That is the AHC, the Alien Housing Center, S2 Alpha, or they call it the S2 Annex. I got the food, lunch, dinner schedule. I had a person come forward, a Sergeant Michael Munoz, who said on live chat on YouTube, stop harassing Jon Stewart. This guy is telling you verbatim. I have the DD-214 that had me at S2 Alpha. I could tell you how to get a wall clock. I could tell you how to get a dignitary. And he's right. Yankee White is the code to get into this building. And we've had 3 other people verify S2 Alpha. Forget this S4, folks. It's a red herring. It's the sub-level 4, yes, but it's sub-level 4 beneath S2 Alpha. Take that, please, to the bank. And thank you for your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing to remember, those are very old facilities, and even this case is
Yes.
30 some years old.
Yes.
And so those have all evolved. So tactically, there are more critically important areas that are up near Pahut Mesa, Groom Lake.
Dugway.
Out in the Dugway is the most
Yeah.
important newer facility out in the Mojave Desert near Edwards Complex.
Do you think they put those facilities in south of Groom Lake in like a caretaker status? Anybody would know
you
that.
know, I think that there are, you know, it evolves. But remember, the underground facilities that go very deep are connected to all the other ones through tunneling that goes all through that part of the continental United States. And we know this. I mean, Bechtel Corporation and others have built the underground, the subterranean facilities, but also these large tunnels that connect from one place. You can go from Edwards or near Edwards underground and go boom right out to the Nellis complex and never surface.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely true. And we know people. I know people who've done so. So I think this is. Remember, there's a very big story here. I encourage people to go to our archive. We have a dpiarchive.com where we have a map of all these facilities and a pin where a lot of the openings are, as well as in another file, the actual patent for the nuclear-powered tunneling device that has built these spaces that goes through bedrock and turns it into glass. But so, you know, the case you're dealing with is, you know, more than a third of a century old in terms of those facilities. And, you know, it's a bit of a shell game where they can move around and what have you. So I'm just wanting to make that as a point.
It's a great statement.
A fact, just because, you know, we're dealing with programs that have a virtually unlimited amount of money and technology, but are very thinly staffed. And as you pointed out, they make mistakes where things do get out.
Yes, sir.
So this is what we're asking for: more whistleblowers who can come forward, who have direct knowledge or material, and we can see that you are properly protected. But and if you've done some criminal activity, we are looking at being able to immunize you in the program that we have now. That's I can't say too much more about. But I will say any of this activity is treasonous and illegal because it is not sanctioned by the constitutionally authorized officials, and that renders them completely unable to enforce the National Security Act, top secret, provisions to prosecute anybody. It's the other way around. The people who would try to intimidate and prosecute a witness, they will be arrested. See, we're going to flip this right back on this organization because they have no right to claim they have a top secret legal clearance when they are themselves breaking the law. You cannot have it both ways. You can't subvert the Constitution and the chain of command and at the same time claim you're going to use the law to keep things secret. See, you can't have it both ways. And this is their Achilles heel right there, what I just said. So this is why people who are whistleblowers need to come forward.
Yep. Well said.
We have time for maybe one more question, but so there's a lot of controversy around Bob Lazar and, is he really telling the truth with all the things he said? What's your opinions on that?
Do you want me to, I'll go first. I'm going to be very careful with my words here. Number one, I have communicated with Bob Lazar 5 times. He is like a Dr. Greer. He is very responsive. He's a gentleman, and he's been very, very nice to me, and he's not helped me all that much, but I just wanted to get that across. I'm also going to make one more statement. Do not push all of your chips forward on the metaphoric poker table that Bob Lazar was never at Area 51. Now, what he did there, I have no idea. Do I think that there was a desperate need of a breakthrough in the reverse propulsion program, Galileo, and Edward Teller, who recruited Stan Deyo, who was a FBI informant, disgraced Air Force cadet? also recruited Bob Lazar, according to Bob. Do I think they went out of the box mistakenly and tried to get some savants in physics that could maybe, again, think out of the box? Yes, I think that's very possible. Do I think that Bob was maybe part of a psyop? Absolutely. But he was on Area 51. I have seen his name on the EG&G entry log to get onto Groom Lake. So, folks, that is a fact. I will finally say
part of it. But you also remember when we can't go on too long. We're running out of time. I want to add another layer of analysis of this, knowing how the intelligence community works. People can be shown things and told things that are deliberately, they know they're going to leak them because it's a diversion and it's not quite accurate. So you have to be careful. My mantra when I go up and meet with members of Congress and whatnot is that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You're dealing with the super varsity team of intelligence operations, diversions, deception, sleight of hand. So anything like that. And the question is, people get all into the physics of what he presented, which are unproven. People get into, and even what you are shown and told may or may not have been what he thought he saw. Because if they had a sense that he might carry things forward, he would quite unintentionally carry forward part information and part disinformation because there were certain things leaking out at that time that they wanted to gaslight people on. So I'm just saying it's more complicated than people want very simplistic, non-nuanced, idiotic answers to very complex problems. And I can tell you that this is a puzzle palace, like that book about the National Security Agency called this is such a hall of smoke and mirrors, deception, that anything that comes along, ultimately the most difficult part of this is the intelligence assessment. And this is why in 1991 I wrote a paper called The Comprehensive Assessment of the UFO ETI Extraterrestrial Intelligence Subject. And I can tell you that went all through the aerospace and the intelligence community. And I had people contact me and said, this is the most accurate assessment any of us have ever read. How the hell do you know this? And that was in 1991. In fact, Dr. Robert Woods, who worked for McDonnell Douglas, point blank said, because he had been asked by old man McDonnell of McDonnell Douglas to look into this and research it. And Dr. Woods was a aerospace science guy.
Right. I've been working with his son on the BBS facility. Yeah, he's fantastic. Great guy.
And he said, we've never seen anything quite this accurate. How do you know it?
Right.
But I think so. We just keep trying to build, I call it the disclosure mosaic. There's a million little pieces that we've accumulated, and then trying to put them together into a picture, factoring in that in order for this to be controlled by the people controlling it, they need to create enough false information with the real information to steer it in their direction. And that's what's been going on. This is why the CIA, psychological warfare division started doing alien abductions using advanced technologies that look human, that look alien, that are human-made craft, using all kinds of what's called stagecraft. And that began in the early 60s and onward. And it's still going on. The mutilations of cattle, we know who's done that. It's all human. It's not alien. People say, it's an alien harvest. They say, yeah, no, it isn't. Sorry to tell you. So this gets into this whole thing of if you have a small community of amateur investigators in the UFO subculture that it doesn't have proper funding and is easily gaslit and deceived, but you also embed within that community people who are NOCs, non-official cover, who provide false information to the public and to their fellow researchers. And this is exactly what happens. So I guess people would say I'm the biggest skeptic ever, and I am, but only because I've been at this since 1990. And what I've discovered is that you have to be very careful. So when you talk about a case like the Bob Lazar case, it's not as simple as it looks.
No.
And
No.
I think that people often, like Bob, wouldn't even know if they were being played in some sort of a psyop.
Right.
Because the best people in those psyops don't know they are.
Yeah.
They're purveyors of intel or disinformation or partial true and partial false information strategically. But that decision is being made at a level way above there. And so the people who have run those sort of psyops, I do know and have known for decades, and they have really tutored me since the 90s and how that game is played. So
yeah, and the last thing on Bob is that is just raises my eyebrow, and I think people will agree that the fact that he has done 20 interviews over 30 years, yet he will not just sit shoulder to shoulder with a physicist, and that he refuses, that he just made the statement 2 days ago he would not testify before Congress. So that the final verdict is my eyebrow gets raised on both of those facts, and that's my final say. Yeah,
and it's a big problem, and I think that this is why the most it's like what's going on now. We're sitting on dozens and dozens of the hottest whistleblowers in the history of the subject in 80 years.
Yeah,
and they won't be called to a hearing. And then you have people who are UFO journalists up on a hearing yesterday.
Yeah.
Something's very wrong. Something's very wrong with this picture.
No one would disagree with you.
I don't care if I ever get called. I have no interest. But I would if they did, but it wouldn't be a pretty picture because I'd rip apart the whole thing. But I'll tell you right now that the people who are the real deal that are in our witness pool, that number in the hundreds, go to our archive. There are 115 or 120 witnesses and whistleblowers, name, rank, serial number, with their interviews and transcripts for the whole world to see, that are extraordinarily more consequential than anything these hearings are bringing in front of them. Why? This makes no sense. To anyone who would just dispassionately look at it, there's something very fishy going on. So this is where I think the public needs to have their eyes wide open and realize that something is thinking in Denmark when when a group like ours goes in, and I've been in skiffs, and you hand over 50 high value targets who have been chairmen of major corporations with the documents and the proof, who need and want to be subpoenaed before they go to the grave, and they won't be called. And then you have someone who's a UFO journalist on a panel under oath. I'm sorry. So these are the sorts of things that make you wonder what's really going on here. I mean, it just is so bizarre to anyone who knows the truth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not giving up on it, because there's some very, very good people on those committees who are sincerely trying to get to the truth, and we're cooperating with that. And just as there have been with the Senate, Intelligence Committee, and the co-chair, Mr. Rubio, who's now Secretary of State, had a very keen interest in this and received a great deal of information. And so did Mark Warner, who had been chairman back until the election changed the leadership in the Senate. And so there are people who have been trying to get to the bottom of this, who are, I think, sincere. And we have to just keep that moving forward. But we also have to question, what kind of decision making has led to certain people who take over these public events.
Yes.
And then water them down to something that anyone who knows anything. I mean, basically, if you've seen,
it's turning into a popularity contest, not who has the most knowledge in with this phenomenon. Well, that would be Dr. Greer. He's got over a tetrabyte of information. Okay, let's bring in George Knapp, the reporter. I'm a basic human being.
Yeah, right.
What I just said makes me want to take a hammer and because that's a better idea, hitting my head with a hammer, than what happened yesterday. I'm sorry, I'm your friend, but I think most people would agree with me.
Yeah, and in a way, it's not about me at all. It's about the evidence and the science.
Of course.
Collected. I mean,
right.
What I've tried to do is get to the truth by debriefing and interviewing and getting the testimony and the proof from 1,000 different people who've been in these projects. And when I first started out, I debriefed people who were present at Roswell. They were at the original 1995 gathering in Asilomar, California, that I put together in 1995, 30 years ago in June, some of them. And guys who worked on the technology in the 50s, who I debriefed, who are in their 80s, who have since died. So my whole purpose is to go to the direct firsthand people dealing directly with these operations at that level.
Right.
And I've been doing it for over 30 years. And we have all that information. But what's interesting is that the bureaucracy and the administrative staff and what have you tends to always push that aside. And then they put forward witnesses who either, like Mike Gold that they had last time, that doesn't know anything, because I know him, or people who are journalists, or people who had minor sightings and events, as opposed to people who actually worked in the programs. I have a colonel from Edwards who used to manage the pilots who flew the man-made UFOs out of Edwards complex.
That's shocking.
And the skunk works. So it's like, why aren't we hearing from them? What? Hello, knock, knock, So this gets to be, kind of mind-boggling to anyone who knows the real inside story, which of course the members and people who will see this on YouTube will understand. But we're not going to give up. We're just going to keep moving forward little by little. And I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. Sincerely. Thank you.
Send us that log entry from EG&G. That
I will. I sent you another one on a Stanton, how the first Victor we thought was, and I will send. I want to get it clear with my producer. I will send it to Raven when we end. Okay. I will send you the EG&G entry log for Area 51 for Victor, ladies and gentlemen, Stanton John Willett of either Phoenix or Cucamonga, California. So crazy as that sounds.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So that's the sort of documentation you want to get.
Yes, sir.
Connecting the dots. Yes.
Yep.
Great work. All right.
Thank you.
Thank everyone for being here, and the members. Thank you guys for joining us, and for those of you viewing this on YouTube, stay tuned. We're going to be doing more of this, and those of you who can join us, we're going to do a whole on the September 19th, 2021. We're going to do a beautiful event out in the desert on Native American land outside Scottsdale, coming up in a couple weeks. I hope you guys can join us there. If you can't be there in person, you can do it on webinar. So I hope you guys will be part of that, and we'll see you there. All righty.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.